Time, energy, and attention are limited resources. Spend them like your future depends on it, because it does. Concentration can be improved through sleep, exercise, nature, meditation, breaks, instrumental music, white noise, concentration workouts, not multitasking, and timers. Concentration workouts entail focusing on an activity for a certain amount of time and reflecting on how one stayed focused, and thus the possibilities are endless. The site I found mentions drawing, but it's also fair to say that reading would help too, considering its other benefits. Video games, virtual programs that provide brain training or exercise, and coloring have shown promise as well. It's also worth considering the mind diet, in which one consumes fatty fish like salmon and trout, eggs, berries, and spinach, alongside getting caffeine through dark chocolate, coffee, or green tea, such as matcha. By improving your concentration alongside implementing the goal strategies to boost discipline, your self-control will improve. Plus, your working and short-term memory are getting a boost through your improved attention span and increased efficiency with focusing on task-relevant information, while your long-term memory will benefit from the learning strategies. Also consider how mental illnesses can negatively impact mental clarity, and thus using journaling to declutter the mind and for self-assurance will help. When it comes to attention span, there are various things that influence it. These factors include both internal and external elements. Certain chemicals can affect attention span. For example, substances such as testosterone, progesterone, cocaine, caffeine, alcohol, and ecstasy can have an impact on an individual's ability to sustain attention. The level of cognitive ability and the degree of motivation can impact an individual's ability to sustain attention. Since the year 2000, human attention spans have decreased from an average of 12 seconds to a mere 8 seconds. This significant decline, amounting to a 25% decrease, is a cause for concern regarding our ability to stay focused in various aspects of life. The constant access to digital content and the ability to multitask with various devices have led to shorter attention spans. Research suggests that heavy social media users performed worse on cognitive control tasks compared to those who use social media less frequently. Heavy smartphone use, which often involves frequent social media engagement, has been associated with decreased attention span and poor academic performance in college students. Research suggests that multitasking can have a negative impact on our ability to focus and sustain attention. When we engage in multitasking, our brain has to constantly switch between tasks, which can lead to decreased performance and increased errors. Stress can significantly impact our ability to concentrate and sustain attention. Chronic stress, resulting from prolonged exposure to stressful situations, can lead to long-term changes in the brain that affect attention span. The continuous activation of the stress response system can disrupt neural pathways involved in attention and cognitive processes. On the other hand, acute stress, which is short-term and related to a specific event, may actually improve our ability to focus in the moment. It triggers the release of stress hormones that enhance alertness and attention. Actual science reveals that storytelling is one of the most reliable mechanisms for maintaining attention over extended periods of time. Good stories have the ability to induce a state of immersion in the brain, triggering the release of oxytocin, the empathy-related chemical, and eliciting emotional responses that help maintain attention for longer durations. Fortunately, there are various ways to improve attention span. As other psychologists have argued, your concentration can vary so much that the very idea of an average attention span is almost meaningless. Because of this, there isn't even a scientific consensus on how to measure focus. As one recent survey from the Center for Attention Studies at King's College London suggests, nearly half the population now feel as if theirs is worse than it was. With the ever-present pull of our emails, we check them 77 times a day, according to Mark's research, and social media up to 237 times a day for some. It's easy to see why. Of course, we can silence notifications, put on noise-canceling headphones, and work with applications that take up the full screen. Tab clutter causes a significant drop in productivity, according to one 2021 study. Listening to lower frequency binaural beats could nudge your brainwaves into lower frequencies, which promotes relaxation. When you're asleep, your brainwaves are low frequency. In the same way, listening to higher frequency beats could lead to improvements in concentration. In a 2022 paper, Basu and her colleagues combined the findings of previous studies and found that alpha binaural beats, 8 to 13 Hz, work best for improving attention. It's waves at these frequencies that dominate your brain when it's alert but relaxed. You may soon be able to try a visual form of binaural beats too, as Basu did with a class of children. She took lights and made them flicker at alpha and beta frequencies. The children's brains, tracked using electroencephalogram EEG, differed in how well they were entrained. It may sound distracting, but for those with high-quality entrainment, psychometric tests showed improvements in their attention and memory scores. Lining up your most mentally taxing tasks with your natural peaks of focus is key to concentration, says Mark. Her research has found that, on average, these high points occur around 10 a.m. in the morning and around 2 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. There are, however, variations around these times depending on whether you're more of a morning lark or a night owl, what's known as your chronotype. If a person is an early type, their peak focus would be earlier, before 10 a.m., explains Mark. Once you've worked out when your peak concentration times are, the next question is how long should you work for without a break? The annoying answer is that it varies. The length of your peak focus times depends on several things, says Mark. Firstly, the task itself. Does it require a lot of effort or not? Then consider the amount of resources you have available. Did you take good breaks to replenish spent resources? Also, how much motivation do you have to work on the task? Focus declines with less motivation. Finally, there's the amount of stress you experience. We need some amount of stimulation to focus, but too much stress impacts our ability to sustain focus. And while it's often easier said than done, the best way to stretch your length of focus is, according to Mark, to make sure that you start your day after a night of good, high-quality sleep. The best way to refuel your focus could be practicing yoga nidra, which, when translated, literally means yoga sleep. It's a form of meditation. As Dr. Brandon Peters, a Seattle-based neurologist and fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, explains, it's a way of entering a deeply relaxed state of consciousness with brain activity similar to sleep, even though you remain awake, also referred to as non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. It may boost attention by helping remove waste from the brain. You might want to paint your walls a shade of blue or green, or invest in a tinted light bulb for your desk. That's because just as we work best at certain temperatures, usually 16 to 24 degrees Celsius / 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, visual warmth can have an impact. To white walls, meanwhile, may be especially distracting. Studies, including one by the Lund Institute of Technology and another by the University of Nevada, have found that children taught in classrooms with white walls found it harder to maintain concentration. Mr. Miyagi could focus on his bonsai trees for hours, so could martial arts work for the rest of us to improve our general attention too? Yes, according to research by Bangor University, which found that people who practiced martial arts achieved long-lasting improvements in their focus. Some of the martial artists hadn't trained in the days leading up to the experiments, yet still showed improved attention, which suggests that it's not a short-term boost immediately following a training session that will fade away. We found that martial artists had particularly good vigilance, also known as alertness. This is a specific type of attention, which refers to being able to sustain a level of attention such that you can quickly and efficiently respond to unexpected events. Imagining your future selves at the end of the day, where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, can seriously help stop you getting sidetracked, according to research similar future self visualizations, including staring at photos of your own digitally aged faces. have been shown to increase the desire to save for retirement and to eat more healthily too. Consider phrasing your goal as a moral obligation to your future self. Binaural beats in the beta frequencies, 14 to 30 Hz, have been linked to increased concentration and alertness, problem solving, and improved memory. Binaural beats of 40 Hz were found to be helpful in enhancing training and learning, according to a 2020 study. Listening to the binaural beat audio for at least 30 minutes each day in your headphones ensures that the rhythm is entrained, has fallen into synchronization throughout the brain. You can experiment with the length of time you listen to the binaural beats to find out what works for you. For example, if you're experiencing high levels of anxiety or stress, you may want to listen to the audio for a full hour or longer. Remember, you must use headphones for binaural beats to work. You may also want to listen with your eyes closed. A 2015 review of studies found that most studies in this area are limited or contradictory, and that there's evidence of diminishing impact over time. There are no known side effects to listening to binaural beats, but you'll want to make sure that the sound level coming through your headphones isn't set too high. Prolonged exposure to sounds at or above 85 decibels can cause hearing loss over time. This is roughly the level of noise produced by heavy traffic. Binaural beats won't work for everyone. Relatedly, more and better research is needed, but some studies suggest that white noise can help people with ADHD with some cognitive abilities. White noise and pink noise may help improve sleep, and brown noise may help with concentration and relaxation. Brain.fm, Calm, and Headspace are apps for this. Regarding self-regulation, metacognition means being aware of what you are thinking about and choosing effective strategies. Introspection, the process of examining one's thoughts, and journaling are good for this. Question assumptions about what you know and your actions. Also, make sure to monitor your performance. Many people make a number of mistakes when asking for feedback. This includes leaving it to the last minute, only asking, "Is this okay?" instead of, "How can I improve this?" and asking multiple questions at once. The tendency to avoid negative information is called the ostrich effect. Though it can be tempting to run away from constructive criticism, in the long run, we're almost always better off knowing where we stand and how we can improve. Although it may take a little determination, it's definitely possible to get around the ostrich effect. Strategies include focusing on our long-term goals, which should be personally meaningful. You can also create psychological distance by creating a bit of actual distance, or by reframing your reasoning for seeking the feedback. For example, imagining you're seeking the negative information for the sake of someone you care about. When journaling, you write your name instead of I or me. You can find a way to make the process of receiving feedback automatic, like by setting up notifications. Finally, engaging in self-compassion and mindfulness allows us to recognize that it's perfectly okay to feel uncomfortable, but we don't have to let these feelings affect our behavior. Many studies have provided empirical evidence that mindfulness practice improves people's self-knowledge. Remember, overcoming the ostrich effect isn't about finding all of the negative information you can, just being aware of major concerns. This allows us to adapt to unexpected or even worst-case scenarios. Living in fear isn't productive, but it is important to be educated, especially because of the normalcy bias. That's our tendency to underestimate the possibility of disaster and believe that life will continue as normal, even in the face of significant threats or crises. Much of the published research about caffeine suggests that it is beneficial in moderation. Potential upsides: weight loss, alertness, sports performance, lessened risk of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, enhanced post-learning memory, and lower risk of stroke. Luckily, coffee and green tea are loaded with antioxidants called polyphenols, which have anti-cancer effects. Consider choosing green tea over coffee due to its lower caffeine content, and because it contains L-theanine, an amino acid that promotes a state of calm alertness. Coffee's higher caffeine content may more easily lead to caffeine dependence compared with that of green tea. Throughout the day, your body produces a chemical called adenosine, which binds to receptors in your brain and makes you feel drowsy. Caffeine perks you up by blocking those receptors. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes for caffeine to be absorbed into your bloodstream, reach your brain, and make you feel more alert. Because adenosine levels in your brain decrease while you sleep. They're at their lowest immediately after you wake up, Grenner said. So, with little adenosine present for caffeine to block, a cup of coffee first thing will give you less of a boost or less bang for your buck, as Grenner said, than when adenosine levels are high. This may be one rationale for delaying your caffeine in the morning, Grenner said. He often waits for 30 to 60 minutes after waking to have his first cup of coffee, but there are no studies on what the optimal timing should be. It's more about personal preference, he said. Another potential reason to delay your morning caffeine is if you want to have caffeine only once per day, Cornelis said. Timing it for later in the morning could help extend its effects into the early afternoon, potentially countering any drop in alertness at that time. That said, there's no harm in having caffeine first thing, Granner said. Although some online proponents suggest that doing so will disrupt your body's normal waking process by interfering with the natural rise of cortisol, there is little evidence for this. The few small studies that have examined caffeine's influence on cortisol have found that in those who consume caffeine regularly, it has little effect on morning cortisol levels, said Alison Brager, a neurobiologist for the U.S. Army. The reality is that many people don't get enough sleep, so if you need to be alert first thing in the morning, caffeine can be a lifesaver, Brager said. Research has shown that caffeine can enhance mental sharpness and physical performance. For soldiers driving heavy trucks, firefighters working overnight shifts, or surgeons scrubbing in for early morning procedures, delaying caffeine can be a recipe for disaster, Brager said. If you're an early morning exerciser, she added, it makes sense to have caffeine as soon as possible because it may improve your workout. It's also fine to have another cup of coffee or other source of caffeine if and when your energy levels wane around midday, Grander said. Just avoid having it within 6 hours or 8 to 12 hours if you have trouble falling asleep before bedtime, he added. If you feel like you need caffeine throughout the day just to function, consider seeing a sleep specialist, Grander said. You may have a treatable disorder like insomnia or sleep apnea. Here are some other things to bear in mind surrounding sleep. Know that sleep hygiene is the term used to describe good habits related to bedtime. Studies have shown that the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the backbone of your willpower, is most active when you wake up, meaning that creative activity is highest during and immediately after sleep. The brain hasn't had to make many decisions yet, leaving it freer to explore new ideas. Take at least 30 minutes before you head into your bedroom to put away anything that's too stimulating, thought-provoking, or absorbing, anything from action-packed TV shows to work that you've brought home with you. Instead, focus on activities that relax you and bring closure to your evening, like making a to-do list and packing a bag for the next day. If the mind is stimulated, it doesn't matter how tired the body may be. The mind can overpower the body and delay your ability to sleep or result in restless sleep. This also increases the chances of experiencing more vivid or disturbing dreams. Make your work area as convenient as possible in terms of actually getting to work, like by making the things you have to use easily seen or accessible. Be mindful of how your environment or the people in it may be feeding distractions and bad habits. Not engaging in purely pleasurable behaviors or trying new ones will lead to more time and money saved. Try to look busy so people are less likely to interrupt you. Relatedly, you should have a water bottle at or around your desk so that you don't have to get up and get it when you're working. Considering how much time we spend indoors, think about how much the appearance of your environment influences you and add more friction to your negative habits, like putting your phone screen down or using focus mode. This goes for apps too, which might look like taking your credit card off of ones you spend too much money on. Decoration could boost your mood, so it may be worth getting a plant or whatever you find visually appealing, but avoid clutter or distractions. Your space reinforces your identity and your habits. Part of that means you should have separate spaces for work and breaks. This can be taken a step further by intensifying the difference, like walking during breaks and sitting during work. Interestingly, studies show that people tend to experience a short-term productivity boost when they first start working from home. However, after a while, this will begin to decline and will continue to do so. On the other hand, find yourself a separate workspace, and the productivity boost that you experience when you first start working in this new environment will hold steady. The reasoning behind this is that a separate space for work leads to better discipline and mental health, since you have specialized spaces for work and play. Part of having a separate area for serious tasks means considering ergonomics, which aims to optimize safety, comfort, and productivity by reducing physical strain and stress on the body. It is well understood that a healthy and comfortable work environment is essential for employee well-being and productivity. Many jobs require a 40-hour work week, which taken over a long enough period of time constitutes a significant portion of a worker's life. Poor ergonomics can result in overstraining the body over time, causing discomfort or injury, potentially for life. Injuries like carpal tunnel syndrome can be caused by poor posture and lead to potentially irreversible nerve damage in the arm or wrist. Ergonomics can help prevent injuries by providing tools to reduce strain and keep the body in a healthier posture. Poor posture can cause headaches, neck pain, shoulder pain, and stiffness. For example, if a desk or chair is at the wrong height, it can cause the employee to hunch over, leading to poor posture and pain over time. Poor placement of a computer monitor or inadequate lighting can cause eye strain, headaches, and even vision problems. One way to combat a sedentary lifestyle in which one spends a lot of time physically inactive is to avoid sitting for long periods of time. Advocates of standing desks point to studies showing that after a meal, blood sugar levels return to normal faster on days a person spends more time standing. And standing, rather than sitting, may reduce the risk of shoulder and back pain. You won't, however, promote weight loss by standing more often. It's also important not to make big, sudden changes, since back, leg, or foot pain may be the result. This is why many experts recommend setting a timer for alternating between sitting and standing. Research using EEG and other measures to study brain activities during nature exposure find that rhythmic brain activity indicates better attention, higher functional connectivity, and altered sensory processing. These findings correspond with increased focus, cognitive flexibility, and creativity. You can enter flow states to improve your focus during tasks, including chores. This is achieved through clear goals and short, specific segments that you can learn from. There has to be a balance between easiness and difficulty, and if the work is tedious, you can counteract that by upping the stakes. Make sure there's a satisfying aspect to the tasks and try to limit distractions. Ironically, that includes not trying too hard to achieve flow. Still, the effort will be worth it, since those who regularly enter flow states experience more positive emotions, creativity, feelings of accomplishment, productivity, and learning. This makes sense, seeing as the difference between flow and mere concentration is that time flies by while worry is diminished. Two similar concepts are deliberate practice and deep work, which can create the conditions for flow but don't have to. The goal of these skills is to make a habit of maximizing focus. Deliberate practice is just deep work with a focus on learning. It's also more focused on repetition, since the more we repeat a task, the more mindless it becomes, meaning our brains get better at performing it. However, this can backfire if you're overlooking small mistakes as a result of lacking a proper way to measure your progress. You may want to find someone with expertise to help you. One consistent finding across disciplines is that coaches are often essential for sustaining deliberate practice. In many cases, it is nearly impossible to both perform a task and measure your progress at the same time. Good coaches can track your progress, find small ways to improve, and hold you accountable to delivering your best effort each day. As for deep work, it will be difficult initially, but it will improve and become easier to engage in over time. Achieving deep work requires deliberate practice, discipline, and a commitment to creating an environment conducive to focused concentration. Cal Newport introduced the concept of deep work in his book of the same name. For those keen to delve further into deep work, this book is an excellent starting point. Newport dissects the subject across two sections. In the initial segment, he lays out the theoretical framework for deep work and explains its significance. He builds his argument on three pivotal pillars: the value, rarity, and meaningfulness of deep work. Newport believes the following: deep work is valuable because it acts as a method that, once honed, bestows the ability to swiftly master intricate skills and promptly generate high-quality output. Despite its considerable advantages, deep work is rare. The time and effort needed to do deep work is vulnerable to the demands of busyness and the allure of instant messaging and on-demand communication. Deep work offers intrinsic value, yielding a deeper sense of fulfillment compared to superficial tasks. Intrinsic means personal, superficial means unimportant. In the book's second section, Newport furnishes a roadmap for achieving deep work. Engage in deep work. Embrace boredom. Abandon social media. Drain the shallows, that is, eliminate unnecessary tasks. Principle 1. Work deeply. Deep work is akin to exercise. It demands active involvement, causes fatigue, and has gradual improvement. The types of tasks that should be reserved for deep work are ones that are cognitively demanding and benefit from extended periods of extreme concentration. Principle 2. Embrace boredom by not immediately acting on our need to alleviate our boredom by reaching for our phone as an example. Our boredom can result in deep work. Newport argues that our constant exposure to stimuli and distractions has diminished our ability to tolerate boredom. By learning to tolerate boredom, individuals can more effectively enter flow states and achieve meaningful results. Principle 3. Quit social media. We should learn to disconnect from social media because it saps our attention by distracting us unnecessarily. When our status notes that we're always available on social media, including company internal messaging and emails, that means we do not block out time to work without disruption and that we are always available. Principle 4. Drain the shallows. This principle emphasizes that busyness doesn't equate to productivity. It's about recognizing the crucial tasks and eliminating those that waste time. Considering how appealing yet detrimental pseudo-productivity can be, it's important to remind ourselves of the personal motivation we have to engage in a task. Prioritizing busyness over quality work results in tired people who are focused on the wrong thing, alongside a lack of fulfillment and satisfaction. Also bear in mind the Goldilocks rule, which is about finding the sweet spot of motivation, where things aren't too easy or too hard to accomplish. When things are too easy, we quickly lose motivation to keep doing them because they don't excite or challenge us. However, when activities are too difficult, such as new tasks or complex tasks, we quickly lose our excitement to complete them because they frustrate us. Find your why for doing something. When you have a strong enough reason to do something, stay fit, play guitar, do paperwork, you will always find a how to overcome obstacles. The stronger the why, and usually the more emotional the why, the stronger your motivation will be to continue the activity. Also consider how, if you don't challenge yourself enough, your goals won't be engaging or effective enough to prevent you from returning to your comfort zone of old habits. Plus, if you lack the motivation to commit more to your goals, that indecisiveness is an indicator to re-evaluate and clarify the specifics, thus allowing you to overcome complacency and reach the threshold needed to start making lasting change. Consider the Super Mario effect. We are more successful at completing challenges if those challenges are gamified and we are not penalized for failed attempts. Gamified means that you made something more akin to a game. To improve the quality of your work, don't multitask or rapidly switch between tasks, a practice known as switch tasking. Only 2% of people can multitask effectively. Multitasking can reduce productivity by up to 40%. Ironically, it'll take you 30 to 40% longer to complete a task. However, Doing different activities throughout the day could stimulate the brain in a good way. The coexistence of different ideas in the mind may aid in creativity. Plus, pairing a very low-effort activity with something else, also known as background tasking, can be efficient and make time go by faster. In fact, studies have shown that certain types of music can make people exercise harder. Nevertheless, you may be able to effectively do multiple tasks that don't take up the same mental resources, such as walking and recording audio notes. But even in a situation like that, mindfulness is worth considering, both for the sake of your well-being and your safety. Avoid attention residue, which is a light-hearted term for what's more properly known as switching costs. The concept refers to the persistence of cognitive activity about a task A even though one stopped working on task A and currently performs a task B. It impairs your cognitive performance on the new task. You may think your attention has fully shifted to the new task, but your brain has a lag. That lag has become even more prominent in the modern digital world, where you carry and wear multiple devices and tools that constantly pull on your attention with their notifications, beeps, and alluring lights. The research further indicates it doesn't seem to matter whether the task switch is macro, that is moving from one major task to the next, or micro, that is, pausing one major task for a quick check on some minor task. Stopping to quickly check your email or messages is just as bad as jumping between one major project and another. Attention residue is derailing your productivity, leading you to spend more time working to generate lower quality and quantity of output. Having a consistent routine to get in the zone is extremely helpful. The most fundamental strategy for fighting back against attention residue: block time on your calendar for sprints of focused energy. This relates to time blocking. As revealed by 2 experiments, people need to stop thinking about one task in order to fully transition their attention and perform well on another. Yet, results indicate it is difficult for people to transition their attention away from an unfinished task, and their subsequent task performance suffers. Being able to finish one task before switching to another is, however, not enough to enable effective task transitions. Time pressure while finishing a prior task is needed to disengage from the first task and thus move to the next task, and it contributes to higher performance on the next task. Time pressure is the stress one feels in relation to how much time they have for a task. All of this is crucial to bear in mind, since it can take up to 25 minutes to return our attention to a project after an interruption. If you find yourself losing interest, remember that boredom is useful. Boredom is a sign to change our approach. Can't keep your mind from wandering while reading a dry text? What if you tried summarizing it instead? Eyes glazing over while reading an explanation. Maybe the problem is that you don't really understand how it works. Try something active, like the Feynman technique. Stuck on homework? Maybe the problems are too hard and need to be broken up first. Or too easy and need an extra challenge to make them more engaging. The Feynman technique is based around the idea that one of the most effective techniques to enhance our understanding is to imagine that we're teaching the material to someone who has absolutely no idea about the topic. We force ourselves to explain our thoughts fully and avoid glossing over topics we don't understand well enough. 1. Identify the topic. 2. Teach it to a child. 3. Identify knowledge gaps. 4. Simplify. Even if you can't make use of the Feynman technique, experimenting with how you approach boring tasks is crucial. Scientists have found that monotonous work can negatively impact mental health, cause us major stress, and lead to burnout. The chronically bored are at higher risk for drug addiction, alcoholism, and compulsive gambling. In her paper, Neuroscience Reveals That Boredom Hurts, Dr. Judy Willis, a neurologist and former classroom teacher, claims when we're bored, our judgment, goal-directed planning, risk assessment, focus, and control over our emotions all suffer. And a Korn Ferry poll of nearly 5,000 professionals claims that the top reason people look for a new job is boredom. When faced with boredom, we tend to use distractions to stimulate ourselves. However, these short-term solutions only serve to strengthen the grip of boredom. It's like an addiction where we need more and more intense stimulation to fight boredom, and this may ultimately lead to more boredom in the long run. Proneness to boredom is associated with self-control problems, including addiction, gambling, and binge eating. Although boredom is known for its role in leading to negative outcomes, boredom has also its benefits. Boredom can be a catalyst for action. Not only that, but boredom improves our self-control and mental health because we aren't relying on needless stimulation. When we allow our minds to wander, we foster creativity. Plus, boredom encourages us to seek out new experiences and set goals. Breaking down tasks and giving yourself milestones will make your goals seem more manageable. Besides clarity, you'll also get a sense of control, especially if you first focus on how much progress you've made and then shift to how much is left after you've passed the halfway mark. Know that burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. As the stress continues, you begin to lose the interest and motivation that led you to take on a certain role in the first place. The negative effects of burnout spill over into every area of life, including your home, work, and social life. Burnout can also cause long-term changes to your body that make you vulnerable to illnesses like colds and flu. Because of its many consequences, it's important to deal with burnout right away. Most of us have days when we feel helpless, overloaded, or unappreciated. When dragging ourselves out of bed requires the determination of Hercules. If you feel like this most of the time, however, you may be burned out. Burnout is a gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can creep up on you. The signs and symptoms are subtle at first, but become worse as time goes on. Burnout may be the result of unrelenting stress, but it isn't the same as too much stress. Stress, by and large, involves too many pressures that demand too much of you physically and mentally. However, stressed people can still imagine that if they can just get everything under control, they'll feel better. Burnout and depression can also be difficult to tell apart, and some of the symptoms can overlap. For example, whether you're depressed or burned out, you might feel exhausted or have a hard time focusing. Burnout can also be a risk factor for depression. However, the two conditions have important differences. In particular, depression involves feeling negative about multiple areas of life. Burnout is not caused solely by stressful work or too many responsibilities. Other factors contribute to burnout, including your lifestyle and personality traits. In fact, what you do in your downtime and how you look at the world can play just as big of a role in causing overwhelming stress as work or home demands. The key to dealing with burnout is reaching out to others, questioning the thoughts you have surrounding work and your life, getting hobbies, making use of relaxation techniques like meditation, getting enough sleep, exercise, and maintaining a healthy diet. By the way, there is no right way to meditate, meaning someone can explore the different types until they find one that works for them. Research suggests that meditation may have the potential to improve physical well-being as well as emotional health, but most of the evidence is preliminary. When it's time to shift your attention away from your work, there's a research study finding you should keep in mind. Longer breaks and frequent short breaks were associated with more resources than infrequent short breaks. Remember to change your location when taking a break to strengthen the association with work in your workplace. Similarly, you can use separate devices for important tasks and leisure. Taking breaks prevents you from experiencing diminishing returns. There are various things you can do during a break. All that matters is that it's good for your mental or physical well-being. Examples include walking, exercising, connecting with nature, or going outside, having lunch or a snack, drinking a beverage, taking a few deep breaths, meditating, or getting creative are all ways to deactivate and reactivate one's attention. Breaks are important. Not taking enough breaks leads to burnout and higher stress levels. Benefits of breaks increases productivity, improves mental health and well-being. Employees feel more valued by their organization and supervisor if they promote taking breaks, increases job satisfaction, restores focus and attention, especially for long-term goals, can prevent decision fatigue, increases creativity, promotes healthy habits. Movement breaks are helpful for emotional and physical health. Rest helps consolidate memories and improves learning how to take a break. Do an activity that uses a different part of the brain than was being used for work, which allows the part of the brain being used for work to rest. Be fully detached from work during the break. Try to be active during the break. When feeling too busy to take a break, switch to a different task. Longer breaks can be spent engaging with a hobby, which is better than doom scrolling. The act of spending an excessive amount of time on social media, scrolling through overwhelmingly negative content, is linked to considerable amounts of stress, which hobbies alleviate. Spending time with people you like is also a great option. After all, Americans are guaranteed the right to pursue happiness for themselves, but might they be better off if they pursued happiness for others? In 5 studies, we compared the 2 strategies, showing that, ironically, the second pursuit brings more personal happiness than the first. This is related to the concept of random acts of kindness. Interestingly, scientists have shown that people who have developed a self-image around virtuous activities are more likely to identify and resolve self-control conflicts. Unfortunately, this can backfire if you lack proper motivation and allow yourself to succumb to the licensing effect, which occurs when people allow themselves to do something bad, for example, immoral, after doing something good, for example, moral, first. If you counteract it by learning about the downsides of your behavior and remind yourself of your goals, you'll reap the benefits of the noble edge effect, in which individuals or organizations display an increased tendency to make ethical, responsible, or sustainable choices when they are associated with a prestigious, respected, or virtuous reputation. It highlights the influence of perceived reputation and social identity on decision-making. The noble edge effect has significant implications for encouraging positive behaviors and fostering a more ethical and sustainable society. This is related to the looking glass self theory, which suggests that an individual's self-concept or sense of self is significantly influenced by the perceptions and evaluations of others. Because our expectations of how others feel about us plays a role, we must engage in self-compassion. If you feel like being physically active, consider doing an exercise snack. This isn't about what you eat pre or post-workout. It's a way of getting closer to the recommended 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise each week by doing short bursts of intense activity, moving around vigorously for a minute or 2 at a time. With exercise snacks, the workout or movement lasts around 2 minutes, with an extended rest period of an hour or more in between. While more research is needed to fully understand how exercise snacks can benefit your health, recent studies show that the benefits of exercise snacks may include improved cardiovascular function, increased endurance, improved flexibility, improved muscle strength, reduced blood sugar levels. Consistency is key, so try to do 3 of these every day. Stair climbing, jumping jacks, jumping rope, chair squats, lunges, sprints, push-ups, mountain climbers. If you'd rather receive mental benefits, you can combine deep breathing or breath work with meditation. This allows you to potentially reap the benefits of both techniques. According to research, breathwork may improve alertness, focus, memory, and promote creativity.